In the year 2019, the world was hit by a cataclysmic event. It wasn't a natural occurrence as the uninformed might assume, but a real case of science going too far. And despite this, not a solitary human soul could have predicted it. At this point in time, the majority of the major countries in the world had decriminalized most psychoactive substances, either mainly as a reaction to their individual failed wars on drugs, or so they could be legally sold and taxed. A singular small island that had chosen to largely ignore the common-sense examples set by most other significant nations on Earth was the United Kingdom. This would prove to be its undoing, and that is where this story begins. Seth kicked open the heavy door of the accommodation block, wincing slightly as he stepped into the cold, damp fog which had settled over the grounds during the night. He walked purposefully to the labs, intending to check on the reaction vessel he had set up the night before and get to work as early as possible so no one would disturb him. After swiping his ID, he walked up the corridor to the main lab, trying to anticipate what might have developed during the night. The specific reaction had been very carefully considered, but he thought to himself, what about possible contaminants? As Seth reached the entrance to the lab, he instantly noticed something was amiss. The door was ajar. This door, like the turnstile-type gates further up the hallway, required a valid ID to be placed in front of an electronic reader, or the door would not open. "No need to panic," said Seth. "One of the cleaners probably propped the door open and just forgot about it. It's easily done." Before pushing the door open and stepping into the room, Seth looked down and noticed there was a very thin metal wedge holding it open. This put him more at ease, but there was still a feeling of mild panic beneath the surface. He wasn't supposed to be using the lab for this project, and if anyone found out, it might not end very well for him. Stepping into the lab, he noted a strong smell of iodine, and sure enough, a spilled and smashed bottle of the brown liquid was lying in the middle of the already heavily stained hardwood floor. Walking further into the room, he looked around for any more signs of anything untoward. There were a few flasks and beakers strewn around the room, broken as if thrown with great abandon, but otherwise nothing really seemed out of place. Seth suddenly came to a dreadful realization. If someone had come in here and smashed all this for no reason, what might they have done to his work from the night before? Walking towards the back of the lab, Seth checked for any more signs of destruction. There wasn't really anything out of place as far as he could tell, so he started to feel more at ease. Heading towards the fume hood where he had left his creation the night before, he still felt much more at ease until getting close enough to see that the white powder that had precipitated out of the solution, which he had left here for the solvent to evaporate off of, was mostly gone. It looked as if it had been scraped up and removed with quite a bit of care. Oh shit, this is very bad. Alan stood in the street now. It was bitterly cold, but he no longer felt it. After seeing that powder sitting mostly dry on a glass plate, he found he could not resist. There had been reservations welling up in his mind, but in the end, the need for narcotic stimulation had won out against the shattered fragments of his conscience. Alan had taken notice of the research that this particular student was doing when realizing that what he was working on was not being undertaken in any official capacity. It was a pet project, and it sounded as if he was trying to invent some new type of psychoactive not covered by the government's heavy-handed blanket ban. Being a cleaner, he had easy access to the labs, so he had always taken notice of what was going on in terms of research, especially if it was being done in an unofficial capacity. The meager benefits his job provided were worth throwing away if he could acquire a significant amount of drugs, which could be sold for cash, or, like at this particular time, he had been craving some strong medicine.